Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature successful business leaders, authors, top law firms, green energy companies, and more. Today, we have another great episode in our IT Manager series with the IT Manager of Emagine Entertainment, Chris Benson. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matt, so much for having me. Super happy to be here.
Super happy to have you. Before we get too far in, a quick word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by cyberlynx.com. That's cyberlynx.com. Do you know if a hacker's in your system? Most people and most companies don't until it's too late and a hacker's already done damage. A hacker's job is to bypass your security, so companies need a way of knowing when someone's gotten past their security. That's where CyberLynx intrusion detection comes in. With our 24/7 Security Operations Center, we use a combination of AI and cybersecurity technicians to see when a hacker successfully bypassed your security. So if a bad guy gets past your security, we'll know right away and be able to kick them out. Find out more at cyberlynx.com. That's cyberlynx.com. And now back to our show. Chris, for those who aren't familiar, can you tell us about Emagine Entertainment and your role there as IT manager?
Yeah, so we're a luxury movie theater company. We're really big in the Midwest. We specialize in things that aren't just, movies. We have really nice luxury recliners. We have state-of-the-art bar. Everything is fantastic. So if you're in the area, please check us out. As far as my role, so I was introduced to Emagine from a previous colleague and a lifelong friend. His name is Scott Winters, and we worked previously at another company, and he just really liked me, and he brought me along. So I was brought on as a system administrator just to kind of help him clean up the network, help out on some projects, take over the help desk ticketing system, things like that. And then about a year and a half in, they offered me the IT management spot. And of course, I said yes. And that kind of brought me into where I'm at now. I've been doing it I'll hit 3 years in October. So coming up on that benchmark. But yeah, I've been loving it ever since.
Congratulations. So now your intro into IT, was this one of those kind of lifelong things? Did you find it later on? How did this work for you?
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting story. In high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. All I knew was that I enjoyed helping people. But yeah, I had no clue what exactly I wanted to do. My mom was a nurse, so I thought about following in her footsteps. That was too much schooling for me, and I said nope. My dad does like CNC and CAD and all that stuff, and I just couldn't get along with it. So I always had this passion kind of for technology. So a couple of years after high school, when I graduated, I finished up my basics at my local community college. And then I was like, I'm going to pursue IT. So I was actually working at a different movie theater chain at the time. And I was a staffer. And then when I turned 18, I worked my way up to management. And then I became the assistant manager, and one of their IT people was at our theater doing some work, and I'm just like, man, that kind of looks fun. Like, I envision myself doing this. So I kind of reached out to my boss at the time, and I was just like, hey, I kind of want to pursue IT. Like, do you think I can shoot our CIO a message? He's like, yeah, go for it. He's super nice. And, keep in mind, I had no idea who this guy was. And he's like, yeah, go for it. Just send it to me so, I can proofread it and all that stuff. I'm just like, yeah, I'd love that. So I shot a message to our CIO at the time, and he fired back with, hey, how about an internship? I'm just like, yes, please. So shortly after that, I was going to school still, and I was interning for that company at the time. And I loved it. This showed me a different side of IT that, I never thought there was. IT is not just, fixing computers, replacing RAM or upgrading computer parts and components and everything. There's networking, there's servers, there's so many projects, there's point of sales, endless opportunities there. And yeah, I really liked it. So part of my main project for the internship was going around to all of our local theaters, and I was upgrading the switching and as well as replacing all of the network cables in the rack and just making it look pretty. And of course, documentation. So we had someone who I mentioned before, Scott Winters. I worked with him primarily, and he was doing all the configuring on the other end and just telling me, okay, you're going to plug, patch panel port 1 into port 1 of the switch. And he had everything laid out. It was just beautiful, and we worked so well together. So we did that for about, I want to say 10 of our locations at the time. So yeah, it kind of just, sprung in from there. He was able to show me, this different side of IT, and I really just enjoyed it. It's something you do something new every day. Of course, you're still helping people. You're going to get people on the phone and through email and text that just don't know what a computer is. And hey, that's okay. That's why I have a job, is what I tell everyone. So yeah, it kind of sprung from there, but I've been loving it ever since.
Well, I think that's the one of the great parts about IT is that for so many people they come at it from so many different areas. There's always a way in. I think unlike say medicine where it's a
Mhm.
very strict kind of path and there's really just one path in, and law has like two paths in,
Right.
that with IT it is all over the place. You get people who
Absolutely.
go to school for it, people who, just picked it up, growing up, people who came at it like you did, just so many different ways to get into IT. And I think it's such a welcoming industry, unlike like a lot of them. The self-learning is kind of it's I guess it's really encouraged and accepted in
Yes.
IT, which I think is great because instead of those, well, you got to have this certification. There are certifications for sure, and that's a part of it. But I think everybody in IT really kind of appreciates that self-learning path. And the fact is, at the end of the day, it's do you know your job? How good are you at it? And versus, yep, you got a certificate that said you went through a course.
Exactly. And just to kind of, lead into that, like I'm still going to school. I have been in school ever since I graduated high school. I just took a different route and I've been working full time, ever since that internship right out of high school. And, right now where I'm at in my career, do I think a degree would benefit me? Sure, of course. But I still want to get that degree primarily for myself. I have a handful of certifications. Some are very well known, some are not. But hey, you can take any route. I always tell people you don't necessarily have to go to school to be successful. It definitely does help, but especially in this day and age, IT is just it's almost like a trade. There's multiple certifications, there's internships, there's classes you can take. You can just watch people and listen to mentorships and all of that. So it's really a great growing career choice in my opinion, and I'm very blessed to be a part of it.
Well, I love that nursing was too much schooling for you, and you've
Oh
been
my
in school
God,
ever since.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, it's funny because like I definitely like I should have been done like a long time ago, but I'm just chugging along. But hey, that's okay because I'm at where I'm at right now because of the steps I took. And I'm definitely, I'm gonna keep growing and I'll finish one day.
yeah. Well, my brother, one of my brothers is he was 50 by the time he finished his. So I was like, well, good, we're all on different paths doing different
Yeah,
things. So
I love that.
it is what it is. Yep. So I think he really enjoyed the process a little more than most.
Uh, yeah, the process, I mean, yeah, it's something. It's just it's hard, doing IT all day and then you got to go to school and do more IT and then it's just like I don't want to lose that passion.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, it's difficult.
that's great. So let me ask you, what are you studying?
Right now, I'm doing information systems. I
Nice.
bounce back and forth between. So I started out as computer science because, out of high school, when someone says, "Oh, I want to pursue IT," it's just
Computer
computer
science.
science is what they think. And I started doing that, and I'm just like, man, I hate coding. Like, it's nice. Like, don't get me wrong, because that can definitely help you out with some commands and CLI and all that. But I'm just like, I do not want to code all day for hours and hours. So then pursued something else, and then I started doing leadership classes, and then a little bit of leadership mixed in with information systems. I feel like I'm finally on my path, and one day I'll get there.
That's great. Well, let's go back to. I'd like to go back to talking about the company, because first of all, I'm a huge fan of movies, and the luxury kind of movie experience I think is the future. I mean, you can,
Yes.
especially when it comes to streaming services, everybody's got they're set up at home, and it's it is what it is. Some people have got nice little home theaters, some people just got their TV, and you can see the movie, but it's not the same as going to the theater, sitting in the recliner, having some nice service, nice food. I mean, that's just that's just one. I love that. So
Exactly. I
so let
think,
me ask you on that end, and when we're talking about IT and whatnot, how does that how is that different than, say, the architecture firm? I mean, you've got the I think you guys were one of the first to go fully digital with your projectors,
yes,
right? So
yes.
tell me about that. How's that work with projectors and the whole IT aspect of movie theaters versus IT for I don't know, some office.
Yeah, so I guess to say there's a lot more equipment. Here at Imagine, we actually have our own, we call them the ET team. So they're entertainment technologists, and they do everything with the sound, the picture, the projectors, all of that stuff. So we have our own team that deals with that. Of course, it integrates with IT as far as the networking, just getting them a connection and everything like that. Um, but yeah, as to say, compared to an office, I mean, there's just a lot more equipment. Here at Imagine, we really specialize in the magic of movies and more, because we're constantly doing things that are and more. And me personally, I believe, Imagine came out of COVID pretty strong. And as we all know, COVID was a huge impact for, places like mine for movie theaters because everyone was shut down for some places, only for a little bit of time, some places for years. And I believe because Imagine specializes on that and more, that's one of the reasons why we survived through COVID. Like we do some crazy things. Like we turned one of our theaters in downtown Birmingham, Michigan. We turned it into a haunted house for the entire month of October a few years back. It was super fun. It was great for the kids and adults. But it's not something your typical movie theater would do. We have
Yeah.
screening rooms where you can have like a party in and kind of have like your own, I don't know, I'd say close to 20 seats, and you watch the movie how you want to. You can control the sound, you can pause
Cool.
it, you can, if you got to go to the bathroom, things like that. Um, we have high roller rooms with bowling. We have duck pin bowling at one of our
What?
Batavia, Illinois locations. Yeah, it's crazy, and it's really cool because when you envision going to the movies, you're just there, to watch a movie for a couple hours, but no, you can actually make it like a full day thing. You can get some bowling in, you can get some drinks, and then go see your movie. You can have lunch, you can have dinner here because our food's fantastic. But yeah, it's all super cool.
Wow. So how did this, do you know the kind of the origin story of it?
Not exactly. I've looked into it a couple of times. But yeah, I know our co-founder and chairman, his name's Paul Glantz. He's very famous in the Metro Detroit area and super nice guy. Yeah, I know this is kind of his baby. I mean, he's still in the picture. Um, but yeah, like I said earlier, he's our chairman now. We do have a CEO. But yeah, the two of them just work together very nicely. And Anthony, our current CEO, he was able to kind of capture Paul's vision. And yeah, I don't even know how to describe it.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it, when I was first brought on to be all of this.
Yeah.
Um, but again, I'm very thankful that I was brought on and we aren't just a movie theater company because, it would get boring if you're doing the same things every day.
Yeah. Well, now, and that's kind of, I think that's one of the best parts of IT is it literally is never the same day twice. I mean, in, I don't know, all of my years, there's never been the same day twice. It is always a
Exactly.
new problem. I mean, heck, you can't even install 10 computers the same way, even when
No.
it's exactly the same. It's like, how is this possible? We're doing the exact same thing on 10 computers. And like, there's always one or two that are different that just, it doesn't, the software doesn't load the same way. It's like, everything's exactly the same.
Yeah.
So yeah, nothing's the same in IT, which I think is a really nice, it's fun for us.
Mhm. Absolutely.
So on the IT side of things, how's this work with you guys? Do you kind of manage everything remotely? I mean, you've got theaters all over, and you've
Mhm.
got your ET folks. How
Mhm.
does that work in terms of managing it? Do you manage it remotely, people on site? How's that work?
Yeah, so we do have a corporate office out in Troy that we all go to. But yeah, for the most part, we can manage just about everything remotely as far as our servers, our switches, our firewalls, our point of sales. When I first started, it wasn't like that. But yeah, I think in today's age, you have to be able to manage that stuff remotely because it doesn't always make sense to, okay, I'm gonna send someone to drive 2 hours to go plug in a cable
Yep.
or something like that. So most of it's managed remotely. Luckily, a lot of our theaters are in the Metro Detroit area. So in the case we need to, run somewhere where, within an hour from a good handful of our locations.
Yep.
As far as the out of state ones, luckily we have some really good theater managers who are able to work with us over the phone and FaceTime, things like that.
Yep.
But yeah, there definitely has been the event where hey, I'm sorry, you got to drop everything. We got to drive 2 hours away to go take care of this because we can't get to it remotely, and
Yep.
it is what it is.
Yeah, no, it is so much better now than it used to be in terms of,
Yes.
thanks to the remote technology and just being able to control and manage everything from anywhere. I mean, oof, I don't miss the old days. That's for
Yes.
sure.
Yes, it's made our lives a lot easier now that, if someone's replacing like a receipt printer or something like that, we can just ship it to them and they can just plug and play and we just log into the point of sale terminal and we can configure it. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
One thing I've always been curious about is with new movies and it being, digital projectors, is the movie download, does that happen? Is that something that the projector, have they worked that out with the theater? How do they do that? I mean, I know it's got to be like a very secure thing where they don't want their movie
Yes.
getting out and it's all this stuff, but I've
Yes.
always been curious, like, how do they do that?
So, without, I guess, getting into too
Hmm.
much detail,
No
um,
secret sauce here.
we we have a server, and then that is where a lot of the things are through the cloud. And this is for majority of theater chains, of course. Um, but the movies theoretically would download through the cloud onto that server. Just because you have the content to play that film doesn't mean it's possible of playing it because you still need what are called keys to actually play the film. And those keys, like you might get the newest Disney movie, months in advance, and you have the content on that server. However, you can't play the movie until you have those keys, and
Okay.
those keys usually they won't come until like Wednesday night, maybe Thursday morning. And of course,
Cool.
that's for, so no one's screening it early and
100%.
uploading it on the internet. But yeah,
Super
that
cool.
server communicates with all of our projectors. So every projector, they're sitting on a pedestal. And then in that pedestal, they have, a UPS, they have a switch or two. And then they also have their own kind of like a mini server. And then
Mhm.
that mini server communicates with the big server on, what content is being transferred and all of that. So
That's
it's
very
it's
cool.
really cool on how it works. When I first started working in a movie theater at 16, um, my theater at the time was all digital, but we still had all of the I think they're called like platters where like the film would actually just sit on and it would be miles long, like some of these.
Wow.
And you'd have to time it. So like if you had this film playing in auditorium 4, 5, and 6, you would have to string it along all of those and time it perfectly. And
Wow.
of course, when, a film broke or anything like that, you'd have to patch it right there and then on the spot, which luckily I didn't have to do any of that because if I had to, I would have messed it up. But yeah, it's really cool seeing some of like I'm gonna call them historic artifacts, even though that they aren't that old, but it was before my time. And it's just really cool to see some of that in our auditoriums.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so then I'm imagining that every like I guess movie company, right? Let's go back to Disney. They
Hmm.
do their own special thing where there's like a, whatever it is, a login. You guys do it, or does it tie directly into the system where they're like, no, we work with all these different companies and it's kind of more of an integrated. Is it?
Yeah, I would say it's more integrated. So it's pretty seamless if
That's pretty
everything
cool.
works, how it should, and it communicates with our program. Um, I mean, theoretically, the managers on site won't have to do anything
That's
as long
awesome.
as it works. But of course, technology breaks. That's why I have a job. But yeah, knock on wood, everything goes well, and you're ready for that big busy Friday evening and Saturday night. So yeah,
That's very cool. Now you guys have a pretty decent number of theater. How many theaters are you guys at now?
I will need to fact check
I
that
think it's
because I don't want to get it wrong.
yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty sizable number.
Yes, it is. I know we're top 10 in North America. I want to say it's 27 or 28.
Wow. That's
I know
fantastic.
I should know that number off the top of my head, but
No, but that's good. 27, 28. I mean, that is a solid number of theaters. So
absolutely.
how many IT technicians and ETs does it take for 27 different theaters in 27 different locations?
Yeah, so we run a tight ship here, I would say, but it's because we have A+ players and we can have kind of that tight ship. So ET, I want to say they have 5 to 6 people, and
Nice.
they're their own department.
Yep.
They of course we work with them. But yeah, they do everything how they're supposed to do. And then as far as on the IT side of things, we have 5 here who are in Michigan, and then we have a gentleman out in Minnesota. We actually have 2 out in Minnesota, and they kind of work on those all those theaters out there.
Mhm.
But yeah, we all work together. It's a very friendly
Awesome.
team. But yeah, it's a tight ship for sure. But we all just kill it and we do what we're supposed to do, and that's why we're able to be successful in our roles.
Super cool. Now, I always find it really interesting that the number that it takes for different industries, like, and for different size companies, the number of people in IT that it takes to keep things going and to manage the kind of the workflow. Some places it's, a very, very low number for a surprisingly large number of employees that they can support. Other times it's a surprisingly large number of IT for a surprisingly small number of people. And so yours is a really interesting situation where you've got kind of, I would imagine, smaller teams in these theaters, right? Because you get points of sale. It's not like you
Right,
have 100 office workers at every
right.
every satellite office. It's a theater, right?
Yes.
With mostly people working the cash registers, cleaning up, doing, making food,
Mhm.
serving, all the things that go in. And you guys are doing far more than just movie and food. So
Yes.
all of those people. So it's really interesting to see that I mean, a surprisingly small number, I think, for
Yeah.
you guys. So
Yeah.
that's, yeah, highly efficient. That's great.
Absolutely. And with us being a movie theater chain, like we're open every single day of the year. Almost, sometimes our theaters are closing at, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. So we're 365, almost 24/7. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, we always have someone on call, that always helps. But luckily, all of our IT guys, we really like our jobs. So we're never far enough, from our computer. We're always, bringing our computers with us. but yeah, we get it done. And I want to say pretty much everyone at our corporate office is like that as well. I mean, I have no issue, respectfully reaching out to someone during your typical non-office hours, but they'll always answer because they understand, we're all part of one team. And I think that's really great to be part of, this industry where it's so unique, but you also have really good people surrounding you who motivate you and will cover for you in the case of an emergency. And everyone's just really understanding.
That's right. I mean, you know what? I think corporate culture is such an important aspect of success. So, it clearly you guys have got a nice, they've created a really good culture of
Yes.
support and understanding. Which is funny because sometimes in some companies it's so adversarial, which is I think interesting, where instead of seeing IT and cybersecurity as part of the team, they see it, as it's sometimes challenging,
Mhm.
kind of the challenging member of the team, and it's certainly a little more adversarial. So, has it always been that way with you guys there, that it's just that's the culture? Everybody is just one big team, or did that
Yeah,
develop?
I'd have to say like, a lot of things funnel um through multiple departments. And because of that, like we're always working together. Now, of course, it's gotten better, since I've started. But yeah, I'd really like to give, hats off to our CEO, Anthony. He's a really good he's hands on, but he lets you, have your space, and he understands that this is, your department, rather if you're talking about marketing, HR, IT, ET, you name it. It's your department. You run it how you're supposed to. You're the expert in this field. I'm here to support you.
Right.
Anthony's really good at just creating that special bond. Like we love to have fun at the office. Coming into our office is always encouraged because, we have good food, we have good snacks, all that fun stuff. And of course we have fun, during Halloween, we always try to scare each other, things like that. Um, but yeah, no, it's a really good culture, I would say. And it's not like your typical, oh, we're a family and all. Like it's not like that. It's just we go to many corporate office outings, and we also include a lot of people at our theaters as well, which is always good because in at a previous, theater job I've worked, it was always your corporate office is up here, your theater's down here. Here we kind of see everyone as, rather if you're a C-level executive or if you're a staffer, just cleaning. Everyone's the same. Everyone puts on their pants, just like the last person does. So I think that's what's really different from at Imagine, especially compared to previous jobs and all of that. I really like how, I've never seen a C-level person go introduce themselves to just anyone at the theater who they don't know. And, me seeing an executive do that, it inspires me like, yeah, I'm going to go introduce myself. Like, yeah, I've never met you before. I might have seen you a couple times, but hey, I'm Chris with IT, how's it going? Things like
Yeah,
that. So
that's great.
it's really cool to see that and just, recognize that, it's not corporate office versus the theaters. It's just Imagine, and that's who we are.
That's awesome. So, kind of in that whole kind of team environment, I think for a lot of IT managers and CIOs, one of the challenges that they face is communication, communicating the needs and in terms of security, maintenance, day-to-day stuff. And I think that's always, well, sometimes that's a challenge. Some environments it's not at all. In fact, it's very, they're very cooperative. And I think Imagine it seems to be more on that line. And so, have you found that, because I think a lot of IT managers kind of I don't want to say necessarily struggle, but some find themselves really struggling with communicating IT and cybersecurity needs to the C-suite and getting them to understand the need. Because it's one thing for it to be like, well, this is important, but
Right.
then ultimately, in most organizations, there is a finite budget for what needs to be done. Like most people aren't printing money, right?
Exactly.
There's only so much, and then to get your to get what you need in order to be successful in IT, to stay safe on the cybersecurity side. Communicating those, I think, are really, is often a real challenge for people in IT and cybersecurity. So I'm curious, is that something that you found challenging? Because some organizations have some pretty cool structures. How's it work for you guys? Is that something where it's like, now, of course, the guys are awesome. Everybody in the C-suite's list, like whatever. So kind of curious.
Yeah, I guess, if we didn't have any security practices and use that money in it and just invest it in our environment, IT, we wouldn't sleep. Like, let's be
True.
honest here, we'd always be on our toes and it just wouldn't be fun. Luckily, the C-level suite is very responsive, to the ideas we bring them. And, of course, there's budgets and everything like that. But yeah, no, I'd say it's been pretty good, especially from a security standpoint. And, again, our CEO, Anthony, he's really in our corner when it comes to things like that.
That's great.
And he understands, a little bit about security enough to where like he's just like, yes, I agree. Let's implement this. Let's get it done. Because, it's scary. Technology is always changing. There's always bad guys out there who want to get into your environment and compromise your data and do all of that. But yeah, it's our job as IT professionals to stay with the trends. And one of the first things I always do every morning is either browse Twitter or Reddit and just see what's happening in the IT world, because that's a great way to get all of this information. But yeah, it's definitely scary a little bit, because obviously no one wants that to happen to them. But yeah, it's all putting those security practices in place, like simulated phishing emails, phishing tests, how to contact IT if you receive a potential phishing email or anything along those lines. So it took a lot of work to put those practices in place. And, we as IT, we had to come up with the best practices for us and, what to properly do to follow these procedures. And luckily, we have a really good system in place now. And yeah, knock on wood, it's been working.
Yeah, I think the interesting part is just how fast things advance now. Like I think back, and I'm not even that old. But going back, I kind of got into this when I was 13 back in that would have been 89, right? So going way back, I got into IT. I started, programming kind of professionally at a very, very young age. And at that time, and even fast forward into the 90s and in the 2000s, the early 2000s, you could be a subject matter expert on basically the whole field. Like
Yeah.
it was small enough to where you understood everything about computers, you understood everything about the internet, and it was not crazy to be a real expert of everything that was going on. Now everything is advancing so fast, and with AI, the bad guys, they're using it on their end as well. Now they're advancing just as fast. So the crazy part is now fortunately we're able to use AI on the good side to combat them using AI on the bad side. But it's now so intricate. It's so advanced, and things are advancing so rapidly that the real challenge is, as you said, kind of staying up on it. And
Yeah.
you can no longer be an expert in all areas of even cybersecurity, let alone all areas of IT, because that's all
Mhm.
changed. And so it's one thing to keep the basics going, but I think we have COVID to thank in a way for and ransomware for bringing it to the forefront of everybody's attention and being like, oh crap, this is a real thing. Because for decades we were like, security, it's a
Right.
big problem, and everyone's like, it's fine, you're chicken little, the sky is not
Mhm.
falling. Look, it's been fine this whole time. We don't need to put any money into security. And it was a real challenge especially for small and medium businesses
Yes.
on the IT and cybersecurity side, to really get those dollars for security. And then when something bad did happen, it was like, well, why didn't you say something? Um, but now I think everybody is, acutely aware that
Mhm.
that it is a real issue that affects everybody, and we've got to
Absolutely.
take some action. And I think finding that balance is where most people are. I don't think it's any longer the, hey, we need to do something about security. Nah, it's fine. I don't
Right.
think that really exists much anymore thanks to
Mhm.
ransomware. But there is that finding that balance and staying on top of things.
Right. No, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And it really helps, to have the C levels in your corner when it comes to that, because I've been in worked for other employers, and it's just, oh, we don't care about that. We have Webroot, Sentinel-1 on our computers. We're good. Well, it's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, some companies don't understand that until it happens to them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I think that is as beautiful an ending as possible. But before we wrap up, can you tell everybody where they can find out more about you and Imagine?
Yeah, no, I'd say a good way to contact me is just through LinkedIn. Look me up, Chris Benson. And as far as Imagine, you'll see me at the theaters, of course. But no, make sure to check us out at imagine-entertainment.com. You'll love our theaters. Please just give us a shot. And thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming on, Chris.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.